What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Wednesday, August 30th, 2023, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now, it is 6 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, and we currently have a presidential doomsday plane in the air over Lake Superior and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And yesterday we had a doomsday plane in the air over the Midwest that turned its transponder off and was also accompanied by a mid-air refueler and also a B 52 nuclear bomber and an E 6 Mercury nuclear war communications relay plane were in the air at the same time. So a lot of these doomsday planes in the air the past few weeks. And we also have some breaking news that a B 2 stealth bomber was moved from Iceland to Norway last night to conduct a ground refueling exercise. Whether that B 2 actually stayed there or went back to Iceland, we don't know. But we do know that last night a B 2 was moved to Norway from Iceland. There's currently three B 2s in Iceland. Okay, and we only have 20 of them, so 3 out of 20 is a significant deployment. All right, we also have breaking news that apparently Ukraine has broken through the second line of fortification in the Zaporizhia direction. Okay, if you remember, Russia built like 4 or 5 defense lines with trenches and dragon's teeth and minefields, and Ukraine has apparently broken through the second line out of those 4 or 5 lines that they made in the Robotine area, which is that town that they took just a few days ago. So the little pocket that they created in the Robotine area is now expanding, and they're starting to reach the second line and even penetrating the second line of defense. And so now we have to really keep an eye on Russia and see if Putin does something crazy, like launch a tactical nuclear strike. The other day, one of the Russian politicians was calling for a nuclear strike on the Robotine to wipe out all the Ukrainian troops in that pocket. And he was actually the deputy of the state Duma. Okay, that's the state parliament. That's not a nobody. That's someone really high up there, and he's in Putin's same party. So pretty crazy. And there was also a drone strike last night on Russia. Multiple cities were targeted, and specifically one city near Estonia was hit especially hard with multiple drones. And Russia is now blaming uh, Estonia and Latvia for allowing Ukraine to fly drones over their airspace or to even launch them from Estonia and Latvia, which we don't know if that's true or not. That's just Russia's speculation. Okay, they're speculating and they're blaming Estonia and Latvia, which could give them a reason to attack Estonia and Latvia. It could also be a false flag that Russia, created to give them a reason to attack NATO or attack Estonia and Latvia. And if you remember my update from yesterday, Dmitry Medvedev, former president of Russia, was again threatening NATO with war, saying that because the West and NATO are responsible for approving Ukrainian strikes on Crimea and Ukrainian operations on Russian territory and Russian occupied territory, that basically the West and NATO are party to the conflict, and that now's the time for Russia to basically launch an attack on NATO. And he quoted the book of Revelation and saying that the apocalypse is coming. And all these doomsday planes in the air, a ton of emergency action messages the past couple of days. We had like 25 today. Yesterday also like 25, and the day before 30. And we had Hurricane Idalia make landfall today as a Cat 3, and it actually got up to Cat 4 before it made landfall. So just so much stuff going on, guys. I'm going to try to get through all of this as quickly as possible. So let me just show you guys the official press release from the U.S. Air Force about the B-2 going to Norway. So as you can see, published August the 30th, B-2 Spirit conducts historic hot pit refueling in Norway. A B-2 Spirit bomber from Whiteman Air Force Base conducted a historic hot pit refueling at Orland Air Base, Norway, on August the 29th, 2023. The occasion marked the first time that the B-2 has landed in Norway, signaling the shared commitment between the U.S. and Norway to deter threats and strengthen the NATO alliance. 3 B-2 Spirit bombers are currently forward deployed from Whiteman Air Base to Keflavik Air Base in Iceland in support of the Bomber Task Force Europe. Hot pit refueling within NATO countries allows the B-2 to expand its fuel range and minimize its time on the ground. By exercising the capability to conduct hot pit refueling in strategic locations, the U.S. and our allies are able to increase combat air power through the European theater. So basically, hot pit refueling is a fancy term for basically these planes. They land on the ground and they keep their engines on, they park, and then they get connected to fuel and they get refueled and then they go back up into the air. And the reason why this is so important, especially in a place like Norway, is that Russian radars would be able to pick up any midair refuelers. If, let's say, a B-2 had to be refueled in midair, if there was an actual conflict between Russia and NATO and a B-2 had to be refueled in the air, Russia would be able to see with their radars the midair refuelers refueling the B-2. So it would give up the B-2's position. Okay. But if the B-2 lands at a base somewhere or some airstrip or airfield, it can get refueled without giving away its location. All right. Because they're not going to be able to see it landing and they're not going to be able to see it getting refueled. So this is basically an exercise to prepare for some kind of a theater level event between NATO and Russia, where a B-2 would have to be refueled close to the Russian border in the European theater. Now, these B-2s can also carry conventional weapons, so they could even use these B-2s to conduct clandestine operations in Ukraine. They could drop conventional munitions on Russian forces in Ukraine, and Russia wouldn't even know about it, because the B-2s are stealthy, and if they just drop gravity bombs, they're not going to know about it. The U.S. could just say, "Oh, it was a HIMARS attack." Um, so this is huge news, guys. Absolutely huge. We also had a combat scent plane that was moved from Offutt Air Base to the UK, and a combat scent plane. There's only 2 of them in the entire U.S. Air Force, and these are planes that collect electronic emissions, okay, like radar signals and stuff like that. And these planes are specifically made for the president, the defense secretary, and all the top generals, so they can get up to date information on the enemy's radars and signals. Okay. And so for them to move one of them to the UK is huge. Okay. So they moved a B-2 to Norway, they move a combat scent to the UK. Doomsday planes up in the air every single day the last month. Yesterday, one turned its transponder off. Emergency action messages through the roof every single day. I mean, something is going on here. There's something brewing, and now Ukraine is reaching the second line of defense. The drone strikes last night, I mean, they targeted multiple cities in Russia. They hit Kaluga, Orel, Lipetsk, and Tula, and then Moscow itself. And in the city of Peskov, they hit 4 Ilyushin 76 transport aircraft, which were completely destroyed, and 1 Tu-22 bomber that was destroyed as well. Okay. So, get prepared, guys. There's a lot of stuff going on. Cases are on the rise, as far as the the bug. I can't say the name on here, but you know what I mean. Okay, the cases are rising again. They're talking about possibly more lockdowns potentially if it comes back. Here we have the town where this exercise took place with the B2, and it might still be there. It might just, this is just a cover for moving it to Norway. I mean, who knows? Or it just did that exercise and then came back to Iceland. But the fact that there's three B2s in Iceland is a big deal also, because we only have like 20 of them. And for them to move three B2s to Iceland is huge, okay? Because these stealth bombers can do all kinds of things. Okay, they can attack Russia's northern fleet here in Murmansk area, Yagelnaya naval base, where all the Russian ballistic missile subs are. Not all of them, but like 2/3 of them. Okay, they can attack so many targets if they have those B2s there. And there was actually a bunch of AWACS planes in the air yesterday. If you remember my update yesterday, these AWACS planes were in Norway, which is very unusual to have like two of them in the air. And now we know why, because they were patrolling this area while the B2 was there. And here's that combat scent plane that went from Offutt Air Base to Mildenhall. Okay, Mildenhall is like the Wright-Patterson Air Base of the UK. I mean, all of the top secret planes go there to Mildenhall, okay, from the US. But again, this plane, there's only two of them, and they're specially made to pick up radar signals for the president and top generals, okay, so they can get a picture of enemy forces, okay, land, navy, and air in a particular theater. And I'll read to you exactly what this plane does here. So the RC-135U Combat Scent provides strategic electronic reconnaissance information to the President, Secretary of Defense, Department of Defense leaders, and theater commanders, locating and identifying foreign military, land, naval, and airborne radar signals. The Combat Scent collects and minutely examines each system, providing strategic analysis for warfighters. Collected data is also stored for further analysis by the joint warfighting and intelligence communities. The Combat Scent deploys worldwide and is employed in peacetime and contingency operations. Okay, and there's only two of them in the Air Force inventory. So if they're moving one somewhere, it means that something is serious enough over there that it warrants them moving it. Okay, the Russian ruble is continuing to drop. This is the past year. You can see the ruble crashing, but like today, you can see the ruble drop today. Look at that little drop there. And then the last 5 days, it's continuing to go down slowly. Okay, so as the ruble continues to drop, that's when we got to be on high alert for Putin to do something crazy. And I want to just share with you guys some of these emergency action messages. This was yesterday, about 25 emergency action messages. These are nuclear attack options that are broadcasted to our ballistic missile submarines, and they're alphanumeric coded messages, basically, so nobody understands what they mean except the people on the submarines who have, they can decrypt it basically and understand what it means. Okay, but these are broadcasted on public frequencies, and you can listen to them. And so this particular person by the name of Neat Intelligence, you can follow them on Twitter. Their Twitter handle is 02_0279, and they follow these emergency action messages all the time. And there was 25 of them yesterday, which is significant. And the day before there were 30. Okay, so that's pretty significant. And here's a picture of the drone strike on Peskov in Russia last night. I can't show you guys the full footage, but if you join my Patreon, you can get access to the footage. I can't post it here because of the policies here, but on Patreon I can post it. So check my Patreon. I did post a video earlier today, And I also posted some things for my members on YouTube as well. I gave them a preview of this update like 5 hours ago. So if you join my YouTube channel membership and then my Patreon, you're going to be ahead of the curve. You're going to know this information before I post it, because I usually try to post these previews before I release my actual video. But massive, just massive, I can't say the word, but kabooms. Okay, boom. You know what that means? Okay. A lot of them in Russia yesterday. The video footage is insane. You can see just very serious kabooms going on. And, it wasn't some minor, tiny little drone strike. I mean, it was a serious drone strike, some large, large kabooms going on. And the Russian media is now blaming Latvia and Estonia, saying that they were involved in the attack because Peskov is like right next to Estonia, and that basically Latvia and Estonia allowed Ukraine to launch drones from either their territory or over their airspace to hit Peskov. And I mean, logically, it makes sense because Peskov is like 700 kilometers from Ukraine. And for Ukraine to launch drones at Peskov from Ukraine, they would have to traverse a huge part of Belarus and Russia that's covered by air defense. And if they were to send those drones from, let's say, the Baltic Sea or from the Baltic countries, they would bypass all that heavy air defense, because Russia has most of its air defense concentrated near Ukraine. They're not expecting Ukraine to attack from the Baltic side, so their defenses are lower in that area, and that's exactly a brilliant way to strike Russia if you're Ukraine, is to go after the areas that are not as heavily fortified. Okay, but I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just speculating. But Ukraine did damage several planes, and this is a very serious strike by Ukraine. This is they did some damage. They did some serious damage. And here's a picture from the Institute for the Study of War showing that second line of fortification that the Ukrainian military has already reached. And this is near Robotine, which is that little town that was liberated along the front line there in the Zaporizhia direction. This is, the land bridge area of Ukraine, that land bridge that Russia made to connect Russia to Crimea. And so Ukraine wants to cut that land bridge in half. And this is one of the ways that they would do it, is to push south from here and reach the Sea of Azov. And reports are coming in that the Ukrainians are already expanding beyond Robotine. And the Institute for the Study of War is kind of already showing this. This is from yesterday. This is yesterday's update. And they're showing these little blue, like sort of like arms coming out here in the southern direction and southeast. And they're saying here that Ukrainian forces have already advanced to Verbove. So Ukraine might be on the verge of making a massive breakthrough here. They've already penetrated the first line of defense here. Now they're up to the second line of defense. And based on what I've read, is that the Ukrainian soldiers have already reached the dragon's teeth in the trenches, and they're just working their way through the minefields now, which takes time to clear. But the fact that they reached the second line is huge news, guys. Okay, so this is the area I'm talking about right here. This is that critical section of the land bridge that Russia created. And so Ukraine just has to push south to the Sea of Azov and split this whole land bridge in half. And you can see it's a good sized pocket here. Okay, it's a couple of miles long and a couple of miles wide. And they're starting to expand outside of Robotine. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but they've already reached the second line. So I can't imagine that the further defense lines behind the second line are going to be that much stronger. Usually your first two lines of defense are the strongest, and then the third, fourth, fifth lines are not as strong. So, it's possible that Ukraine might be on the verge of some kind of big breakthrough here, and this could be the counter offensive that we've all been waiting for. We'll have to wait and see. And last night we had a lot of reconnaissance activity in the European theater. Here we have two sub-Hunter planes operated by the UK that were patrolling the Danish Straits. And what's interesting is that they were flying really low right here between Norway and Denmark, which means that there must have been something there for them to fly that low. And this was actually this afternoon and late this morning, not last night, I'm sorry. And here's another reconnaissance asset operated by NATO in Romania. Here's a AWACS plane that was flying along the Romanian Black Sea coast, and it was up there for a long time, and it was aerially refueled. So why that is, I'm not sure, if they're just keeping an eye on the grain shipments or something else. And here we had an RC-135 rivet joint that was patrolling Poland and the Romania-Moldova border. It heavily patrolled the Romania-Moldova border, more so than the Polish-Russian border, which is very interesting. And here we have some aerial refueler planes that were active last night during that drone strike. And you can see one of them was flying near the Polish-Ukrainian border, and then one up here near Latvia. So it's possible that the U.S. Air Force knew about the drone strike ahead of time, and they put their assets in the air just in case Russia were to retaliate or do something. And finally, I just want to give you a quick update on Idalia. It's already weakened to a tropical storm. Here's the latest satellite loop, and it made landfall as a Cat 3. It reached a peak strength of Cat 4, okay, which is 130 plus mile per hour winds. And here's the rainfall forecast. You can see a widespread area of 6 to 10 inches of rain in South Carolina and North Carolina. And here's the latest forecast cone showing it going out to Bermuda as a tropical storm. It's not expected to re-strengthen. So most of the damage has already been done, basically. And I'm hearing reports of as many as 500,000 people without power in northern Florida. We still have some storm surges to deal with here in the Carolinas. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. But there's so much going on. We got, the B-2 bomber going to Norway, doing a refueling exercise. We got another Doomsday plane in the air today. We have the combat scent plane, okay, going to the UK. We have this massive drone strike last night, and, one of the targets was that airfield near Estonia, okay, potentially Estonia and Latvia, allowing Ukraine to, do that. Just so much escalation, guys. Something is about to happen. I don't know what. A lot of people are saying 9/23/23 is the date. So that's not too far away. If you remember, the war started on 2/24/22, literally just 2 days after 2/22/22, which is a multiple of 6, which is the number of the devil. Okay. And so now people are saying that something could happen on 9/23/23. So look for some kind of something to happen, some major event to happen at the end of next month. And what's interesting is Ukrainian intelligence said that Russia was going to draft 500,000 troops by the end of next month, at the end of September. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but that's the latest information that I have. Make sure you guys are getting prepared. Make sure you have a bug out bag. Make sure you have, everything you need. Okay. Water, security, food, a nuclear war survival plan. Okay. Very, very important in the times that we're living in. You need to have a place to go in case there's a nuclear war so you can survive the fallout. All right. Our government does not have civil defense anymore. It was disbanded during the end of the Cold War. So we don't have shelters anymore. We don't have education for the general public on what to do. Okay, a good place to learn about that is my nuclear war survival playlist. I did a whole series on how to survive nuclear war. I have like 12 parts in that series, lots of information. I highly recommend you check it out. But I'll keep you guys updated. That's all I got for now. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.